It's Lucy Litch, and this is Tiny House Conversations. It's the Australian-based podcast where I interview experienced tiny houses, tiny builders, and adventurers in the tiny world so you can discover how to create, build, and transition into tiny life. So you want to go tiny, but you might be wondering, where can I park my tiny house? I want to let you know that I have a special unreleased podcast episode of tiny house parking success stories from other tiny houses who were just like you and who have easily managed to find a long-term parking space for their tiny home. Some of them have even found more than one space. So if you want ideas on finding a parking space for your tiny, you can download this episode for free. To get access to it, head over to tinyhouseconversations.com/tiny parking. If you enter your details there, I'll send it straight to your inbox. Now let's intro today's episode. Hi, it's Lucy and welcome back to Tiny House Conversations. Today I have not one, not two, but three guests joining me on the show. Laurin, Eujenne, and Till, who are the co-founders of Tiny Easy, a tiny house design company based in Auckland, New Zealand, whose mission it is to help you kickstart your tiny house building journey. And in this conversation, we talk about Laurin and Eugene's tiny house build, the tiny house designs and plans available through Tiny Easy, including comprehensive additional resources like a cost planner, floor framing and cabinetry plans, a build planner, tool guides, a fully customizable Sketchup model, and plenty more. We also talked about the process of working with Tiny Easy and the building companies they're partnered with in Australia and New Zealand, what's inspiring them most in the tiny house world, and more. So, on to the show with Laurin, Eujenne, and Till. Eujenne, Till, and Laurin, welcome to Tiny House Conversations, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Amazing, Lucy. Yeah, it's such a pleasure to be on your podcast today. And yeah, we're all really looking forward to having a chat with you today.
Yeah, me too. Excited. So you guys run a tiny house design business called Tiny Easy. And I'd love if you're able to share with us just a bit more about your backgrounds, how you came across the tiny house lifestyle, and then what inspired you to create Tiny Easy.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great question to start with. Yeah, it goes back a long way, I'd say, how we stumbled across tiny houses in the first place. I'd say, I think it was 6-7 years ago or something like that. We discovered tiny homes, I think through YouTube or blogs or something like that. Just how everyone discovers tiny homes for the first time. And then one of our family friends had a connection to Bryce from Living Big in a Tiny House. And that was when we were all still really young. I think it was, I don't know, we were 13, 14 or something like that. And he actually showed us around his tiny house that he was still building when he was just getting started with his YouTube channel. And yeah, that was the first tiny house that we walked through. And yeah, it kind of just took over our passion for tiny homes. And it's just such an amazing experience to stand in one for the first time. And yeah, it really captured our attention from there.
Yeah, and then about 3 years ago, Eugenne and I, we really decided to build a tiny house for ourselves. We've actually been in the tiny house industry since about 5 years ago, working together with some companies as well. We've got an architectural background ourselves. Yeah, we decided to build our own tiny house, and we kind of went through the same journey that everyone else does. And we started creating our own plans and planning our own journey. And yeah, it's been such a great experience, building it ourselves and just picking up so many things along the way. And then, during that journey as well, we started Tiny Easy just out of the need and the realization that there's probably a lot of people like us out there who are also looking to build their own tiny house, or they're looking to get a tiny house built by a builder. And at the time, there's just not really a lot of information out there that helps people go tiny. And even though it's just a tiny house, there's so many things to consider and so many things to plan. And it's not just plans, but it's also just the whole planning process, discovery, and getting to a point where you can actually hit the go button and really get started. And that's where we started Tiny Easy together, the three of us. And we first started out with creating plans for either DIYers or people who want to take them to builders. And we've been perfecting those for about 1.5, 2 years now.
2 years,
And we've started out now recently digging really deep, creating more product and more content for people to help on the tiny house journey. So we've released a Sketchup pack to help people design their own tiny house from scratch. And then I think just 2 weeks ago, we've released a tiny house course to help people design their own tiny house and really just kind of get the grips of designing your own tiny house yourself in SketchUp. And that's just been such a great experience. And yeah, that sums up the last 2 years and a bit now.
But 2 years for Tiny Easy, and then the whole backstory for that, of course.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I would definitely love to go a little bit more into what you're doing with Tiny Easy. But first, Eujenne and Laurin, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the process of your own tiny home and building your own house. So are you still in the process of that?
Yeah, that's right. So we are just in the process of actually finishing that off. It's been such a beautiful journey, I think, for a year and a bit now of us building it on our weekends. But at the moment, at this time, we are just finishing off the interior. So it's basically a complete shell done with the interior painted and flooring in. And the last step is just cabinetry and electrical fit off. Yeah, it's starting to look like a house, or you can actually imagine the space now. And it's just so great to see it come together.
And how is it working together?
It's fun. Some days are a challenge, but it's just how it is. We're just learning as we go, as we're building. So it's a new experience for us. So it's a lot of just, there are challenges that come up, and we just have to figure out how to overcome them without getting too stressed.
That's right. I mean, yeah, both of us, we're not trained builders. We have an architectural and design background, but not a building background. And even though we know all the technical knowledge, the actual building and physical side of things is just such a new experience for us. So we are just picking up everything as we go. We're talking to builders, friends of ours, to help us out with tips and tricks, and just learning things, even just on YouTube. And that is something that is just such a new experience. And it happens with everything. Like, it might be from how to build a frame, like the physical side of it, to how do you pull wires in a tiny house, or how do you even get the perfect painting finish? Something that sounds so easy. It's something that ends up taking a month or two getting just right.
I think it's been really helpful that we've got friends in the trades section, where we've got friends who are builders or sparkies and stuff like that. So it's been really helpful to be able to reach out to them and talk to them and ask them questions, where they're more than happy to lend their piece of advice or something.
That's right.
Yeah, I can imagine, because there's so many different layers, and although it must be so helpful having the design and architectural backgrounds, as you say, building the actual thing is a different story, and it must also be so rewarding and just exciting, and learning new skills. And then I suppose also adding this deeper dimension for your own business in Tiny Easy, of having gone through that process yourself, so you kind of know what people are struggling with and going through, and what it is that they need, because maybe these are the things that you wanted along your way as well. Does that sound right?
Yeah, you're completely right. There are times when we're in the tiny house and we're building, and then you kind of just stop, take a look around, and you're like, wow, we've built this. I can't believe we're standing in this house. And yeah, it's a really rewarding experience.
That's right. And you're completely right. So it's very, very rewarding. But at the same time, just like you've mentioned, there's just so much learning that we're taking away from this. I think the way that we've designed tiny homes before we got our first hands on the tools for our own build versus now, it's really different. That really forced us to put so much more information into our plans, and then also our new products that are coming out, just because we've realized there's so many little parts that you can improve, and things that you need to find out. And being able to have that hands-on knowledge is just really, really amazing, to kind of retest what you've done and see if it makes sense.
I think it's a real eye-opener, especially when you're designing. You design differently too, once you understand how building structure works, or how you should build this, and how to make it DIY friendly. So we try not to overcomplicate our designs anymore, so that when people are looking at them for the first time, they're like, I can actually build this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does really need to be this manageable and as simplified as possible. Although I'm sure there's a lot of things that are not so simple about the whole tiny build process, but just, making things as simple as possible and step by step. And now you mentioned the designs that you have and the plans. Are you able to tell us a little bit more about the current designs you have and what's included in the plans?
Yeah, sure. So at the moment, at least for our tiny house plans, we've got 3 designs for the time being. And we've got one design that's a small design, 2.4 meters by 6 meters. It's called the tiny house. And that one is perfect for people that are just looking to go tiny. Maybe it's a single or a couple or start a tiny home. And it's a beautiful little gable-shaped tiny house with a loft, with a bathroom, kitchen, and a little living room. So it's all the essentials that you need in order to have a really nice life. And then the next one up is the Scandi, which is kind of the in-between. And it's great for either couple wanting some extra space and an additional guest loft bedroom, I'd say, or even a small family looking for a tiny house with a downstairs bedroom and a small kids loft bedroom. The last one's the Petite Maison, which is our family favorite, I'd say. We've been seeing so many families getting a hold of the plans and starting to build and modify these plans for their own family, which is just really rewarding to see. But yeah, that one's got 2 bedrooms. It's got a nice big kitchen, a living room, and a bathroom. And yeah, so that's the designs that we have at the moment.
And where does the inspiration come from for the designs that you have?
Yeah, honestly, from everywhere, really. Laurin talked about that in a webinar the other day, but you can really draw so much inspiration from so many different places. It can come from architecture, like normal sized architecture, any kind of product design, and everything, kind of like amalgamates into this beautiful design from which we just draw so much inspiration from, any other places, really.
Yeah, and that's, of course, the design and style side of things. And we try to really keep with like a modern, minimalist style that just reciprocates with a lot of people, something that we really want to push, like just a beautiful style, but at the same time, the layout and the way the tiny house functions, that's super people-centered.
Yeah.
So it is really about how can you live in a tiny house the best way possible. And the designs that we've got at the moment, they are built around the people. So just like Till started out, who these designs are for, what type of person would want this, or who would live well in it. And that really kind of decides how the layout works and what's included. And that's just really important in a small space like a tiny house, that everything that's in there just serves the purpose of living your best life for the person in there. And a lot of people are also starting to modify these designs to really make it their own as well, which is really incredible, because everyone is just so different.
Yeah. And are you finding that people are using your plans as a combination of DIY builds as well as taking it to like a building company in their own area as well?
Definitely everyone who's getting those plans, there's this two-folded experience that everyone goes through. So either someone's going to take the plans to a builder and they're going to get that built for them, or they're going to DIY off them. And so essentially the plans are comprehensive enough. So if you don't actually have any experience at all, you can go through them and it gives you enough information to actually build it yourself. And that goes back to Laurin and Eugene's DIY experience, because they've been through it all. They know what needs to get into it. And so it's really kind of a 50-50 of what people do with the plans.
Yeah, and then I think what you are saying before with the builders as well. So the Petite Maison, for example, we've got a builder in Australia who's working together with us to build our designs, which is just really great. He's a fantastic builder, and he's building that for his clients. And he's got his own tiny house building business, and picked up the Tiny Easy designs as an extra design fleet, and it's just really great to see his skills bringing these things to life. So it's really, everyone can build them if you're a builder or a DIYer, if that makes sense.
It's not necessarily just Australia and New Zealand. Our audience ended up just spanning all around the world. Yeah, we sent our plans to the US, to Europe, Belgium, Scandinavia, and even Ukraine, Russia, all of Argentina, all of these different places. So I think we've sent our plans to, I think, 18, 19 countries or something like that now. So yeah, the world's starting to adopt the plans, which is really, really nice to see.
Oh, that's so cool. And I guess it's also a reflection and more of tiny house living is there's an interest of it around the world. And that's so cool to see. And for you guys to make it more accessible for more people too with what you're doing. With the plans that people buy, so I think I've seen on your website, you've got like packages, like different types of things that are included in the plans. Are you able to just take us through what is included?
Yeah, I'd love to do that. There's a lot of things included just in the plan packages themselves. So what we have done, so you've got the plan side of things. So you would have really accurate and full of information. You've got floor plans, sections, elevations, window schedule, door schedule. So kind of the basic stuff. But then it goes a lot further when it comes to things that you really need to know when you want to build a tiny house that's usually not included in plans. So it would be a plan to show the bolt holes for the trailer to secure your tiny house. And then you've got very, very accurate framing plans that give you the dimensions and a cut list of every single timber frame, which is something that we really needed for our own tiny house. And that is just so important when you're looking to build something, having everything there.
The framing is also color coded, so you can sort of identify which timber is which.
That's right, where it goes. It's all numbered, ready to go. So it's much easier than just looking at a plan and having to figure everything out yourself.
With a scale ruler.
With a scale ruler, that's right. And then, it goes further than that as well. So, of course, you don't just have the shell, but you also have the interior. So you've got cabinetry. We've got very accurate cabinetry plans for every single panel even. And then a list of each individual panel you need to cut with your plywood. Can kind of assemble it like a DIY IKEA kitchen, if that makes sense. And then on top of that, it's apart from the plans, we have also extra guides and planners that help you schedule and plan your build. So one thing that's really important when you're looking to build a tiny house is, of course, the cost. And that's probably one thing that a lot of people need to figure out first. So we've created a cost planner that we've also used for our own tiny house journey that includes every single item that you can possibly think of. I think it's about 1,000 different items you can, include, and it automatically calculates the cost based on the amounts you put in. It's very modifiable to whatever you need. And then a step-by-step guide, like every single step that you need to take to build the tiny house. So, in what order you need to do what steps. So you don't forget one important step that you need to redo halfway through the build, which is something that we, of course, came across too. Last things would just be guides and planners regarding interior design, what type of materials we recommend. And then also, I think, a material estimation as well. So for all the things that would take a very long time to read off plans, that's all included in the material estimation, like timber amounts, cladding, insulation. And I think that's like 100 different types of things that's in there. So you don't actually need to do any calculation. You can just directly put it in into your planner and get a quote or a cost from a builder, whatever you're looking to do. And that's just the plans, of course.
Yeah. And then there's still the tool guide.
That's right.
The tool shopping list. So essentially, we've assembled a list of all the tools and an explanation of each tool that you would need to build a tiny house or what we would recommend to use. And again, that goes back to Laurin and Eugene's DIY experience. You just understand what tools you really need to build a tiny house. And then just a quick to-do shopping list, essentially, of what tools you need to get or what tools you're going to borrow, so you can just keep on top of that.
Oh, and then lastly, a SketchUp model too.
Oh, absolutely, and that's a really big point of the tiny house plans or pack. Really, it's not just plans,
Mm-hmm.
That's the SketchUp model. And essentially, what we've seen, there's just so many people that love our designs, but there's just that little last something that they want to modify. And I mean, in the end, everyone's different. So that just makes so much sense. In these SketchUp models, so each plan includes the detailed SketchUp model of each design, and includes the shell. So just the exterior layout. And then it also includes the detailed framing. So you actually understand how it is built up and how you need to construct it. So you can actually take a laptop to the building site and walk through it in 3D and understand how it all goes together, but also to modify it, which is a super, super important step that a lot of people go through. So you can adjust the cabinetry, you can adjust basically everything about the model, and you can adjust the framing to then fit the new altered design, I'd say. So yeah, that's right.
Wow, you guys have thought of everything by the sounds of it. And kind of going, now I know why they're maybe called Tiny Easy. You do make it really easy for people. Like it sounds like you've thought of pretty much everything and a lot of value in those plans and what you get with them as well. And I'm wondering, what are the costs of the plans?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for saying that, first of all. Really appreciate it. I mean, after all, yeah, that's why we called the company Tiny Easy in the first place. We just want to make it super easy for people to go tiny. Any kind of resources that we put out there, and of course, including the tiny house plans. And so the tiny house plans themselves, we sell them for just $35 at the moment. So it's a really, really affordable price point. So you can get stuck into it when you're just at the discovery phase, when you're researching tiny homes. So you can pick up a plan set, understand what you really need for your tiny house build and all the different steps you need to go through. Even if the design's not for you, it's still going to be super helpful. And then if the design is for you, you can just use the plans to build off them or forward them to a builder, or what I said before, you can just modify them as well. So it's a really affordable entry level plan set that you can get with lots and lots and lots of information.
Yeah, and I guess the price point, the reason why we have it so low is so that because at the end of the day, when you're building a tiny house, it's supposed to be an affordable housing option.
Yeah.
So why should the plans cost so much? So the idea is that you can buy plans with the designs and all the information that you can get at a really affordable price that doesn't like break the bank. So
yeah,
it's not such a hard choice to be like, okay, I would like this design, but I can't afford it. But it's more like, oh, it's only $30. It's fine.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. Definitely making things more affordable for people. I'm also curious, with your designs, they're for tiny houses on wheels, but if someone wants to do a tiny house on foundations, can they also adapt your designs as well?
Yeah, absolutely. That's funny that you say that. There's a lot of people that are doing that love the design itself and then want to put it on a foundation. So, of course, if it's not on wheels, you would just need to work with your local building authorities or maybe an architect to modify the plans to fit the standard. But the design works just as well. I mean, there's people that build it just as is on a foundation, or they completely pick it apart and make it different. I mean, for example, we've just talked to a customer of ours like last week who bought a maison plan. Yeah, they're picking it apart and putting the top story next to the ground level instead. So it's a one-level design, and that will be built on a foundation here in New Zealand, and that works just as well. And so it's a really creative solution. And
someone got the Petite Maison plans as well and basically did the same thing. And they're building a Petite Maison in Costa Rica at the moment on a foundation as well. So it's just, it's awesome to see people just are finding so many uses for these plans, let that be for a tiny house or a small house on a foundation. It's quite rewarding to watch that.
All around the world as well, discovered from our plans. It's like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that place existed.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so amazing to hear. So I'm also wondering, do your plans also apply to both timber and to steel framing?
Yeah, definitely. So the thing is that the framing that we've included, they're just timber, but you can build them with steel framing as well. So if you're going to go with steel framing, you just would have a very slightly bigger wall, but it makes no difference to the design. It's only, I think, overall a difference in 40 millimeters on both walls, so 20 millimeters each side. But that works just as well. And a lot of people are doing that. And there are some benefits with steel framing for people that are looking to do it themselves, because they get the whole frame already delivered rather than building up the frame themselves.
And for that, you can just send the plans to steel frame manufacturer and you can develop plans from that. So
yeah, it's very straightforward.
It's a super easy process. People don't really think that it's that easy.
Yeah, right. Okay. That's good to know, like that it's adaptable, that it's customizable, and you can use like the different materials as well. You mentioned before about the Sketchup starter pack. Are you able to share a little bit more, go deeper into that and what that includes?
Yeah, I'd love to do that. So it's really interesting. The reason why we have, first of all, made the starter pack is just to help you modify or design your own tiny house from scratch. So it's great to have plans that are either already the perfect plan for you, or it will guide you as an inspiration. But of course, doing everything by hand and doing everything bit by bit in SketchUp can take quite a long time. So what we have done, we have created, I think, just more than like 500 different drag and drop components you can just easily put into your SketchUp model that help you with any stage of the design process. Let it be cabinetry, so you can pull together a kitchen in about 2 minutes. Or like all the individual trailers, or the wall shelves. So it's kind of all the things that take a long time to do in SketchUp manually that we have just put together. So you can, I think I managed to put together a tiny house with a starter pack in about 20 minutes from just a hand sketch.
Yeah, the components that we've included into this package is there to help people design their tiny house accurately. So from experience, when we were first starting out, we were having to search up dimensions of like a bed or a cabinet, because you don't know that off the top of your head until you start doing it a lot. But for people who are just getting started, it can be quite tricky to find those basic dimensions. So everything has been preset for them. They don't have to really think about it, and it's all designed accurately.
Yeah, exactly. And so all of the components are pre-designed also to standards, so you can actually build of them quite easily. So that goes further than just, I guess, the interior, but also, for example, the exterior shelves that we include, they're designed to the right size, so you can actually frame it up. I've had a chat to a customer the other day as well. It's just, when you're starting out, you just have no idea how big these things are. And if you can just drag and drop it in there and understand, okay, well, I can just trust that this is the right size. You don't have to go through and do hours and hours of research, but you can just get into the fun stuff and design your tiny house.
Because also, when you're designing, you don't always think about those technical details as well, such as wall thickness. So in our shells, we've included the framing thickness, but also the interior lining thickness. So you don't have to adjust that as you're building, and you have to readjust all the interior to fit that.
Yeah, that's right. Something that you can very easily forget if you start construction.
And then the cabinets just don't work just right. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's why is this 1 centimeter short?
Oh, that's funny. And I think you mentioned before, when we were talking about the tiny houses on wheels versus the foundations, there are building standards. And I know that one of the common asked questions is around regulations for tiny houses. And I know that in New Zealand, similar to here in Australia, that tiny homes on wheels are classed as caravans, and that the regulations, they differ from state to state. And then within different councils, they're also interpreted differently as well. I'm wondering, with your designs, are there specific standards or guidelines that your designs are built to in terms of the size, the weight, the trailer, and other features too?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's just one thing that's super important when you are getting a plan, that it actually works for you, no matter what. So what we're doing, we keep our tiny houses to the maximum minimum size of a tiny house in Australia, but also in New Zealand. So for anyone who's not familiar with it, a maximum width for a light vehicle here in New Zealand is 2.55 meters. And I think in Australia it's 2.5, but for both it will work perfectly. So our tiny homes never exceed that 2.5 meter mark, even with cladding attached. So you will never have to go to an oversized vehicle, which is possible. People do here in New Zealand and Australia, but we keep to the safest standard. And then lengthwise, we try to keep it to a manageable amount that you don't go overweight. Of course, the weight is really up to you, depending on how many materials and what type of materials you use. If you use very heavy cabinetry materials and a lot of timber exterior, then of course it would get a little heavier. If you're using the right materials, you can always shoot for that 3.5 ton mark. So that will work quite well here in New Zealand. And I think in Australia, it's 4.5 tons. So you have even a little bit more wiggle room.
Okay. So you guys mentioned before that you work with different tiny house builders where you are in New Zealand and also Australia. Can you let us know a little bit more about that process if someone's wanting to not only use your plans, but also go through a tiny house building company?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the time being, we've got our builder service available for Australia only. And we work together with Salty Builds, which is a tiny house building company in Byron Bay, Australia. And yeah, so the team is led by Dave, who's an experienced craftsman, and I think he's got a team of 5-6 other builders who are working with him. And yeah, so it's a really straightforward process. So essentially the way that it works, if you're thinking of getting a tiny house built in Australia and you like one of our designs, you just call up Dave and tell him that you'd like to have a look at the workshop. You can have a tour around. He would show you around and show you one of the designs that's currently being built. You would sign up with a regular process, which would be a simple deposit to start with, and then you go from there. And yeah, you go through the building process. And so what we've got going on at the moment is actually quite exciting. I think he's building 3 of our designs at the moment, and it's 2 nomads. One of the nomads has been recently delivered. Just as a side note, the nomad is a legacy design that we're not currently selling as plans, and a petite maison, which is also at the interior fit-out stage at the moment. So yeah, if you're interested, you can go on Instagram and look at Salty Builds, and you'll see some updates of the builders there.
Amazing. I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well for Salty Builds. And is there a rough estimate or a rough range of like the waiting time for a tiny build at the moment? I mean, I'm sure it ranges depending on the company and all of that, but is there a rough estimate?
I mean, realistically, he's always busy building a lot of different projects at the same time, but he usually manages to fit them in quite quickly. So I think the waiting time really depends when you call up and what projects he's working on. So the best thing is just to schedule a call with him or just meet him in the workshop, and then the waiting time will be figured out then.
Yeah, awesome. And what's your most popular design? Do you have one that's like more popular than the others?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So I think the Petite Maison and actually Scandi, they're both on a tie. Both of them are really, really popular. They're really, really beautiful designs, and I'd say it just hits the spot for a lot of people for what they're looking to build. I mean, there's a lot of people that want to have a tiny home for a small family. So the Petite Maison would be beautiful for that, or the Scandi, maybe with just a couple or one child. And it's just, it's really, both of them are so popular and they're getting sold every single day. They're both really beautiful designs. And I think both of us, or like all of us, we actually love them equally. Hard to put a finger on it, which one we like more. But yeah, we just love the design styles we managed to achieve with them.
Yeah, nice. It'd be like picking who's your favorite child, I could maybe imagine. If you had kids. Yeah, don't want to do that. And so in addition to your plans and, you know, the paid services that you have, I know that you've also got some cool free resources for people. So you've got an ebook, and then you've got a free download of some plans as well. Do you want to let us know a little bit more about those?
Yeah, sure. So I'll just cover the plans. I think Eujenne can talk about the ebook because she wrote that one. For the plans, what we've done is we've just seen that there's so many people that are getting started with their tiny house journey, and the best thing that you can do is just get as many resources as you can to just understand what's out there and what might be right for you, and read yourself into the topic. And so essentially, we've got a pack of all of our free tiny house plans as the basic versions, essentially. And so you can download these free plans and have a browse through the layout of the tiny houses and understand what layout might be right for you. And we've also included some additional helpful guides and tips and tricks, as well as a tour booklet for each of the designs, so people can understand why we designed each tiny house and what's in it.
Amazing. And what about the ebook, Eujenne?
The ebook was initially created based off conversations we've had with our customers, based off the fact that they'd love to modify or customize a design that they like. So if they found a design that they really like, but there was just something not quite right with it, or they just wanted to start right from scratch, it's the book was designed to help them design a tiny house. And we used to have a custom plan process. However, we were just thinking of how can we help people with the biggest impact possible. So we figured that just doing the custom plan process alone, we're only helping 1 or 2, 3 people a year or something, because it's quite a time-intensive process. So instead, we've created this resource that people can download for free and, really get their creative juices flowing, get their own ideas down to paper and learn how to do it themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just quite awesome. I had so much fun actually reading through it myself. And it just goes through the 6 steps of designing a tiny house. And yeah, it starts with choosing the right size of the tiny house. And then it goes through picking the right layout and then populating it with some furniture and cabinetry and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so you don't end up forgetting a step. So you end up with a really nice tiny house design. So yeah, it's great for people who want to design their own tiny house from scratch, or if they just want to modify an existing designs, which actually works quite well with the tiny house plans we've got available at the moment, and the Sketchup pack as well.
Yeah, and the book kind of follows a really simple, straightforward design process. So you go from exterior, from like the trailer stage to the exterior shell to the interior cabinetry, and then you start going into decorating and stuff. So you're kind of prioritizing the main elements first, and then you go into all the nitty-gritty details later. And so in that, it's how you go through that process. And so the idea is that we have all this knowledge and we'd love to be able to share this with people. So it's in the ebook.
Absolutely. Yeah, go check it out if you can.
What's the best? I mean, I can link to it in the show notes, but if you wanted to share, what's the best place to get those free resources?
Yeah, sure. So if you just go onto our homepage on tinyeasy.co.nz, if you just scroll down a very little, you'll already see our 2 free resources. You can get them there. And I'm sure we'll add some more in the future as well, if you're listening in the future.
I would love to also just switch gears a little bit. So we're talking about your Tiny Easy business, but I want to know a little bit about you guys as well. And I'm curious for each of you, what's one thing that's inspiring you the most in the tiny house world at the moment?
I'll just get started. It's Till speaking now. Personally, I just think it's such an amazing way of getting into a home that doesn't cost the world, or especially for the younger generation. It's just so difficult nowadays to get into a home that's your own and that you don't have to get a mortgage for, that you will pay off for 30 years. And tiny homes are just hitting that sweet spot where you can live in a beautiful space that is well designed. It has super high quality if you design it right. And yeah, it might cost you $100,000-$200,000 or something, and you will be able to pay that off much, much quicker. And you'll be able to live debt-free and have an amazing lifestyle while not being tied down to huge overhead payments. So it just frees up your life in so many ways possible. And that's just so, so exciting for me.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think the lifestyle tiny homes also presents as well. It's that whole freedom, freeing up time because you're not having to work so hard to pay off rent or trying to get a deposit home. It's, gives you that flexibility. And we're all nearly 23. And, that idea of a standard regular home just seems so out of reach at the moment, especially with the housing prices going up. I'm sure that's going around everywhere around the world. And so tiny homes presents that opportunity to actually live in a really nice home that's not single glazed windows or it's been built in the 1970s or something. So it's new, modern, and I think that's just one aspect. And with the time, it allows you to do the things that you actually really want to do. If you want to go travel, you also have the money to be able to spare for that too, because obviously everything costs money.
You can work less if you want to.
Exactly. That's right. So you're able to enjoy your life a little bit more when you're young.
Yeah. And I think, of course, all of us share very similar values. But one thing that I find really amazing about tiny homes is that you can live in a space that's just perfect for you. That is one thing that is really hard to achieve if you're looking to rent, because you're just going to live in a space that has been designed for anyone in mind, but not necessarily you. So in a tiny house, if you design it yourself or you find a design that's perfect for you, you know that every single space in the tiny house is actually going to help your lifestyle. And I think that's something that I've even clarified more when I was creating the course a couple of weeks ago. The process you go through when designing a tiny house, you really think about you first, and then the design follows after, rather than trying to fit yourself in a preset box that just doesn't work for you. And that is just one thing. If you want to design a tiny house that has a very specific interior layout, you can do that. and you don't have to spend $1 million on a new build. And that is just so incredible. And I think that's something that we're finding as well with our own tiny house. We managed to design a really small tiny house that fits everything that we need. And that is something that we just would not have been able to achieve otherwise at all.
Yeah, and to quickly add to that, another aspect of tiny homes is the sustainability side of it. You know, we've built this tiny home, and the amount of waste that we've created is so small because you only need so many materials, and then when you're living in it, the power that you consume and the amount of resources that you need to actually power this house is so little. So you're just reducing your carbon footprint and reducing the amount of materials that you own. You know?
And you're in a beautiful space as well.
Oh, yeah. Actually, just quickly to add to the waste that's created when building, it was quite funny to watch the two when they were building their tiny house because they were designing it so immaculately. There was maybe, I think, like one or two like small bins of offcuts or something and building waste. And if you go onto a regular building site, you just have trucks and trucks and trucks of building waste that's, shuffled away to the landfill. And if you build a tiny house, you can just be so mindful about what you use. So you can actually design with such little waste in mind. And that's just crazy. You can't really do that for regular houses.
So I think we managed to list all the pros of tiny house.
I think so. Yeah, but we're not excited about all of them, to be honest.
I was just going to say that. I was like, I feel like you've covered pretty much like every main benefit and value and appeal to a lot of people that go towards that are gravitating towards this way of living the tiny lifestyle. And I love as well how you were talking about, I think it was you, Laurin, the customizing and building something that can kind of be a reflection of you and your personal needs and wants and your values. And I resonate with that a lot because I'm actually literally at the moment going through my own design process of designing my own tiny house with a builder over here in New South Wales. And it is really exciting, and there's something really rewarding about being able to put your own personal touches on something that's going to be a really big part of your life and something that's really special. And yeah, I just love that. And I guess it's like this really new experience because I don't know about you guys, but for me, like I've rented places and it's always something that's already existing and built, but by someone else for someone else. So there's something really cool to have that customization and a say in how your house is going to be built.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's somewhat an expression of yourself. If you look at someone's tiny house, you just really understand what values they have and what their interests are. I mean, I know that once I build my tiny house, it will have a lot of storage for surfboards, some open space for pets, and it really, really shapes the tiny house. And it's just so interesting to see. And because of that, you just see so many different designs that pop up around the world because they're just so incredibly unique to every person.
Yeah, and I think one thing that excites me as well is that you can customize even more than just the space. I mean, you can go crazy if you would like to, depending on if you're working with a builder, how lenient they are, how much you're allowed to customize. But you can even custom design your cabinetry to the last little bit that it just works for you. Even if it's just resizing it a little bit, even every single day the way you work, everything in the tiny house just needs to work with you. But I'm so excited, honestly, for you that you're going through that experience right now. So are you completely designing one from scratch, or how does that look like? It's really, really exciting.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, I am working with the designer of a building company over here to literally design it from scratch. So, from the floor plan to, where do you want everything to go? What kind of materials and the paint and the light bulbs and, just all the different features that I want to have too. And the cladding and so pretty much every part of it. So it's really new, but it's fun. And I'm like, just really loving this ability to be creative about it too. And also just learning so much along the way, like so much that I didn't realize before. And then also just working with the designer in general of sort of being given ideas of like this and that and how these things could fit together. So it's a really great process.
Oh, that's so amazing. Yeah, I can't wait to see some pictures. I'm sure you will have that all over your social media. And yeah, but
Yeah. I'll be sharing it. So the build won't start until August, but I'm going to be sharing. I'll probably do some podcast episodes on it, and then definitely share the journey on social media and photos and all of that as it comes alive. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, even just the design journey is already so exciting, because if you've got an awesome design, you can already show that off and imagine yourselves living in it,
Totally. Yeah. And enough about me. Let's go back to you. Just joking. So as we start to wrap up the conversation today, guys, I would love to know, is there anything else you feel like we haven't completely covered when it comes to what you're doing with Tiny Easy, something that you might want listeners to hear more about?
Yeah, I mean, I guess one thing to say is that we're constantly evolving and are making new things every week. It's quite crazy. If you've been following us, you'll see that there's just new things popping up every single week. So I'd just be, if you're interested, follow us along and see what we come up with. And yeah, we've got something very exciting to share. I think by the end of the day or sometime tomorrow, we'll be releasing that. So I definitely recommend to have a look at that and see what that is. But yeah, it's something like that happens for us. I'd say every 2 to 3 weeks or something like that. We always release something new to help you go tiny.
Where's the best place that people can come and connect with you online or come and work with you and see what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. So you can just check us out on our website at tinyeasy.co.nz or tinyeasy.co. That works too. And otherwise, you could check out our socials, primarily on Instagram. It's at tiny.easy. And just to clarify, it's easy spelled out, not that. Some people think it's spelled that way. And
also, our Pinterest, we've been growing our Pinterest. So if you're looking to save photos of our designs or what we're getting up to, you can actually pin a lot of our designs now. So we've been trying to grow that. And so if you're looking for inspiration, it's a great place to look onto.
Absolutely. Just search Tiny Easy on Pinterest and we'll pop up very quickly. And yes, it's our designs and a lot of tiny house inspiration that we use actually while designing our tiny homes. So yeah, a lot of curated content that we fell in love with.
Fantastic. I will link to everything in the show notes for anyone that wants to go check you guys out. And if you would like those show notes, you're listening at home, you can find those at tinyhouseconversations.com. And Laurin, Eujenne, and Till, thank you so much for your time today. It's been really great hearing your story and all about what you're doing with Tiny Easy. And I just love what you guys are doing and making tiny house living and tiny house builds more accessible for more people. So thank you so much for what you do and for your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us on your show today. It was such a pleasure to get to know you a bit as well. And yeah, just have a chat about tiny homes. It's just always really enjoyable. And yeah, we'd be more than keen to catch up at some point again to see how your tiny house design build is coming along. Would be quite exciting.
Absolutely. We'll stay in touch for sure. And if you're listening to us at home, thank you so much for being here with us and taking the time out of your day. If you want more Tiny House Conversations, stay tuned every Thursday, and I'll see you next time. Thanks again for listening. And if you enjoyed the conversation today, you found it valuable and you want to support the podcast, the best way you can do that is to share the love. That way I can keep bringing you more tiny house conversations to help you on your own tiny journey. So here are 3 ways that you can support the podcast. Number 1, if you have a friend or family member that you feel would benefit from hearing these conversations, feel free to share it with them, email them, text them, send them a telegram, do whatever you need to do to share it with them. Number 2, if you hit the subscribe button, you'll know exactly when the next episode is live. And number 3, if you head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to podcasts and leave a 5-star rating and review. Thank you so much in advance. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next episode.